What happened to the smiling critters? We saw Hoppy Hopscotch in Chapter 4, which is strange. Why bring up the smiling critters again? I mean, didn't Dog Day say he was the last of them in Chapter 3? Well, I did some digging, and might have just found out that in Chapter 5, we will see all of the smiling critters again. Let me explain first with Hoppy Hopscotch. In Chapter 4, we get a VHS tape that has the bigger body of Hoppy Hopscotch as the picture, and also shows her talking to Doey sometime a while ago in the safe haven. But what's actually interesting about this tape is, it actually might explain what happened to the smiling critters other than Dog Day and Catnap. The tape starts off with Hoppy rushing into the medical station we see in the safe haven with an injured toy that was supposedly bit by possibly a group of nightmare critters. Hoppy, of course, explains to Doey that she along with that toy were jumped and the prototype took all of their supplies, showing how bad they actually had it down in the safe haven. Now, what's interesting about this is it confirms that the smiling critters like Hoppy and Dog Day actually lived in the safe haven with Doey, but strangely were targeted for some unknown reason by the Doctor's forces. But this raises a few questions already, which are, how did the others die? How did Dog Day get in this position? And why is the prototype targeting them? Well, I think the answer to most of these questions can actually be seen in Catnap. Now, Catnap's whole thing is his red smoke. I mean, it's why he was deemed the best experiment Playtime Co has made so far. But what's important about his red smoke is that it implies the scientists were trying to give the toys actual powers that would fit with the toy they're making. Case and point Catnap, the smiling critter responsible for sleep, has a sleeping agent that he breathes out. This makes me believe that Hoppy, along with the other smiling critters, actually had specific powers relating to their core characteristics in the Smiling Critters cartoons. Hoppy would be extremely fast and energetic, which could be how she escaped the jumping and how she was unscathed. Bubba would be extremely intelligent and actually might have even helped locate the safe haven. As implied in this note we see in Chapter 4, Crafty Corn would be one of the every few toys that could write and draw well, and might have been the one to write and paint on the walls in the factory, and might have even been the one who sent us the note we see at the start of the game as implied by the many colors. So, wait, if all of these smiling critters had powers, then how did they die so fast? I mean, shouldn't they still be living in Chapter 4 as supporting characters? Well, to explain why they were targeted, we have to look at this VHS tape with the Doctor and the prototype we see in the Doctor's room in Chapter 4. This tape covers a conversation between the prototype and the Doctor. That's about some weird experiment that the prototype is conducting that Harley says was apparently hard back when Playtime was fully functional, and now will be even harder because they're limited on time and resources. Now, in a previous theory, we theorized that this experiment is actually talking about reverting the toy process and turning toys back into humans. However, as we know from the intelligence differences between the toys in the safe haven and the rest of the prison, we can assume that to actually transfer a conscious brain of a toy into a human, you would need a smart toy that has at least most of their brain intact. And who else do we know from these tapes that more than likely have fully intact brains that have randomly disappeared? The smiling critters. I believe that the smiling critters were all kidnapped by Dr. Harley Sawyer to help with this experiment, which would explain how they all disappeared somehow randomly, and we have no trace of their bodies anywhere. It would also explain why the Doctor says that they have limited resources and test subjects, because there are very few smiling critters, and even fewer other intelligent toys. But wait, if this is the case, then why was Dog Day hung up in the playcare? Wouldn't the Doctor and the prototype want to spare his brain? Well, to understand, let's look at his lines in Chapter 3. Dog Day, when seeing us, explains that he already knew who we were because he said that we were Poppy's angel, implying that Poppy actually had all of this planned out, which is more evidence of Crafty actually writing the note we see at the start of the game. After that, he explains that he is the last of the smiling critters, implying that yes, every single other smiling critter is either dead or on the prototype's side, as implied by him not including Catnap as a smiling critter. He then says that this is what the prototype does to heretics, and because we know he came from the safe haven, this implies that every single heretic that was caught in the prison was hung up like Dog Day. Now, you might be asking, what does this have to do with the experiments? Well, let's note something about this. Dog Day is being tormented in a cell that was clearly placed to make him suffer. But why? Why put him in the Playcare prison where we know the mini-critters will try to kill him? Well, to explain, let's look at his belts. Now, why use belts here? What's the point in that? And why use them to make sure he doesn't bleed out? Why not just kill him like how the prototype did to the other safe haven toys? Well, I believe that the prototype does this because this is how he experiments on all of the smiling critters to try to understand how to do the human conversion process. And you might be saying, well, Dog Day is the only evidence we have for this. We don't see any of the other smiling critters being tortured. Well, let's look at Kissy Missy, who we first of all know is intelligent, and second of all know was attacked and followed by the the prototype in Chapter 4. What's weird about Kissy is beyond her burn marks are these belts we see around her body. Why would there be the same belts that we see on Dog Day on Kissy Missy, unless the prototype was planning to do a cruel experiment on her too? Proving the theory that to complete this experiment, the prototype is putting the toys through excruciating pain for some reason to find out how to transfer their brains, and the prototype specifically targets the intelligent, weaker toys of the factory like Kissy or Dog Day for this to help complete this experiment fully. But wait, if this is the case, then why did the mini critters corrupt Dog Day at the end of his voice lines? I mean, we could boil this down to Ollie / the prototype, knowing that he was revealing too much. But even then, why wouldn't he just kill Dog Day fully then? Or at least make the mini critters come and chase us down? Well, to explain this, let's look at the mini critters and Dog Day one last time. Now, what's weird about these mini critters is their eyes are white for some reason, the same white we see in Catnap's eyes. And after they corrupt Dog Day, they make his eyes have the same white eye circles too. So that raises the question of what do these white eye circles mean? And wait, why do the smiling critters against us have them, but the ones who like us don't? Well, what if these eye circles actually represent the prototype's control over these toys? Let me explain. Now, although we hear Dog Day say that these mini critters joined Catnap's side to survive, this doesn't mean that these critters were all evil at the start. To explain, let's look at the CG5 music video. In this, we see Hoppy without glowing eyes taking Catnap's side, which is strange. Why aren't Hoppy's eyes glowing here? This to me is evidence that at first, the critters that joined Catnap and the prototype's side were actually corrupted by the prototype, which would be the experiments that they talk about in the Doctor and the prototype VHS tape. This would make much more sense and would explain why the prototype would let the mini critters corrupt Dog Day to force him to take the prototype's side. It would also explain why all of these mini critters are so beat up, because it's clear that they were tortured like Dog Day. But why would the prototype do that? Well, I believe that actually these mini critters don't have brains, let me explain. When we are chased by Dog Day, if we get closer to him, we see that Dog Day hold back the mini critters from coming forward, meaning that his brain is still clearly intact, and he's trying his best to not kill us. This would mean that although these mini critters are controlled by the prototype, their brains are not controlled strangely enough, implying that he is controlling them by something else, something we'll find out in Chapter 5. So, with all of that, we can conclude that the prototype's experiments to transfer consciousnesses also allows him to control the toys that he is experimenting on strangely enough, which he most likely does to do his bidding, to get more test subjects, and to also make sure certain toys don't leave the factory like how we hear in the Kickin' Chicken cardboard cutout. This means that there is a large possibility that in Chapter 5 we will see many heretics hung up in the labs, used to do these experiments, and I believe that in this scene we will see Dog Day again, but completely hollowed out. But the smiling critters won't be the only toy we see in this experiment chamber. I believe that we might also see the toy that the prototype tried to use earlier in Chapter 4, Kissy Missy, and her consciousness won't be going to an orphan, but actually be transferred to us, giving the prototype's final line a whole new meaning.
Your collaborators